You got to hear Gray talk about, his season and such. Kind of fill us in on what your season's going to look like, charter, races, things like that.
Yeah, well, I'm going to be lucky enough to make my first Daytona 500 start this year in the number 23 Best Home Furnishings car. And very excited and fortunate to be able to do that. I've had speed at super speedways in the Xfinity series at Daytona and Talladega, and a few years ago we got fifth at Talladega. So I'm hoping what I've learned in the Xfinity side will continue over to the Cup side.
Question for Joey. In the dozen or so Cup starts, what have you really picked up that now you take into this season as experience points that you didn't have before you ran those Cup races?
The biggest thing to learn, which Gray will learn here at the mile and a half, is the sensation of speed you have. 5 or 10 mile an hour doesn't seem like it's that much faster. But when you jump from a Cup car to an Xfinity car back to the Cup car, you're like, holy cow, I'm really booking here. And when you go back to the Xfinity side, it really slows everything down and helps you out a lot over there as well. And like he was talking about, I always have to remind myself when I'm in the Cup cars, if I'm having handling issues, I have that track bar now I can play with and stuff like that as well.
Jacob
Seelman, Performance Motorsports Network. Joey, obviously a lot of time in the Xfinity car the last couple of years. Are we going to see you back in the Xfinity series at all this year? Is the focus solely on the Cup races that you're going to get to run?
Right now, it looks like I'll be going back full time in the Xfinity series as well, back in the 52 car. So when I'm in the 23 car or 83 car, it'll be double duty as well for those weekends.
Stan
Creekmore, outside the box. Given the position that you're in, do you really not pay attention to the points through segment after segment after segment, and you're just more concerned about solid, clean performance?
That's something I'm sure we'll definitely be looking at, and I've been looking on the Cup side and the Xfinity side, especially at the super speedways now, is that, the super speedways are always hairy. You're going to have the big one normally, and you don't know when that's going to happen. I'm always kind of like just to go for it, and whatever happens, happens, and stay up there. And if you lose a draft, you're normally in trouble. But now, with those breaks in there and those segments, you're maybe going to be able to get back with the maybe 2 to 5 car pack and hang out. The caution's going to come out at that point. You'll still be in the lead lap and all set to go, because we all know at a super speedway you can go the 30th, the 1st, in about 5 laps. In a perfect world, of course, you want to be in front of the pack the whole time. But it's definitely something we're going to look into very much.
Wolfgang.
Yeah, Wolfgang Monzer, Germany, Ranchport Press Agency. You said that speed-wise, Xfinity and Cup are big difference. Does it mean also when you jump from Xfinity to the Cup car, it requires a different driving style? You must relearn everything, or is there something you can take over as advantage from Xfinity to Cup?
I think you always have an advantage when you're on the track more. It doesn't matter if you're in a Cup car, Xfinity car, truck, or a go-kart. You're going to realize what the track's going to do when it heats up and it cools down, and what that's going to do to the car. As far as the track heats up or cool down, the handling characteristics are going to be the same, and no matter what type of car you're in. Faster you go, hotter it is out, it's going to make that much bigger of a difference because your speeds are that much faster. But it definitely does make a big difference for sure.
Don.
Joey, Don Gamble, Rapping on Racing. One of the most common questions I get on my radio show is, what's going to happen to NASCAR when all the Cup drivers that are 40 plus retire? But the last 2 days here, there's been such an encouraging group of young drivers like yourself. Is it going to be pressure on you to be part of the future of NASCAR, being as young as you are? And as you move up the ladder, what would your projections be? Looking ahead, when would you be happy to be settled in as a Cup regular?
I'd be happy to do that hopefully here in the next 2 or 3 years or so. I'd be happy to make that a thing anytime in my career. Being a Cup Series regular is something that's obviously huge, and there's really of regulars, there's only maybe about 35 to 30 drivers that are regulars every year across the whole world. So to be able to do that's huge. And like you said, there's a lot of guys up there that are getting to that age of maybe retirement, and some guys you don't think about retiring are retiring now. So like you said, there's going to be a lot more seats to fill, which I think is a good thing for drivers like myself.
More questions for Joey in the back there. Sure, go Fenwick, and then we'll go back.
Adam Fenwick with Speed Sport Magazine. Joey, being in a charter car, you're locked into the Daytona 500. Does that take any stress off of you, knowing that you don't really have to worry too much about qualifying into the race? Or does it add stress knowing you're in the greatest race for NASCAR, that you now are going to have to focus on that effort?
I definitely say it takes a good amount of stress out. Back on my Xfinity days when we were not locked in at all, my main goal every weekend was just to get in the race. And then once I got into the race, it was like a one, and then I was like, oh crap, now I got to actually race this thing. So now knowing that we're definitely locked into the show, our mindset's going to be the whole time working on race setup and not just working on speed. And now with how the spoilers are on the cars and stuff like that, handling's became a big factor now at super speedways, especially at Daytona, with it being a little tighter than it is at Talladega. And with it being during the day, it's probably going to be a little warm out, and this track temperature is going to be high, so handling's going to be big. So now we're going to be able to hopefully go out there and do some more runs in a big pack and not just qualifying runs.
Keith McFarland of the Keith McFarland Review. Joey, what has been perhaps the most important sources of feedback that has helped you so far to this point in time? And the second part of that is, for perhaps some of the up-and-coming drivers, actually younger than you, are there any particular things you've noticed about them that stands out, or any particular drivers that stands out to you as up-and-comers?
The thing I always look at the most on, I guess, my competition or younger drivers trying to work their way up is if they do a lot of the marketing and their sponsors themselves, and if they work on the car themselves. And that's something I take great pride in on my Xfinity team and a lot of my sponsors. It's something I've had to go out and get myself, and I know how hard it is to get sponsors, and once I have them, I want to do everything I can to keep that. And I've seen a few younger guys out there that maybe don't quite understand how hard it is to get sponsors, and that you have to do everything you can to keep them. And I think we've seen a few of those guys go away from our sport because of that. So that's something I definitely keep an eye on. And when a driver works on the car a little bit and understands how hard it is to build a race car and how hard his team works, it definitely puts in perspective on if you wreck this car or you get upset or you lose a concentration, how big of an impact it's going to make on that team. And dollar-wise, too, less you wreck a race car, more money you have to make it go faster instead of just rebuilding it.
Question for Joey. How do you build chemistry with a guy who pretty much signed the contract while we were starting to get here the other day? And do you already have a relationship, or, you got a little time before Daytona? What are you guys going to do?
I don't know what we're going to do for sure. Maybe we're going to go out the GoPro and do some go-karts and build some chemistry that way. And it's going to be interesting definitely after Daytona when he's in the car more. And then when I'm going to jump back in Kentucky and Bristol on what he's learned in the car and what they've learned. And then after Daytona, I'm going to have to tell him, okay, you have to do this and this to go fast. And make sure you watch out for this guy. Maybe he's a little crazy, and this guy will work with you and stuff like that. So it should be a lot of fun.
Do you want to tell us who's crazy?
I like to keep that to myself right now.
Okay, teammate. Joey Gase, driver for BK Racing.